Hey everyone, welcome back to Corporate Decoder, the place where we unravel the hidden stories within company filings. And today we're diving deep into JetBlue's annual report. Get ready because this one's got more twists and turns than a transatlantic flight in a storm. Before we dive in, if you love getting these clear, nonsense breakdowns of complex financial docs, make sure you hit that subscribe button and join our Discord community linked in the description below. It's the best place to keep the conversation going. Alright, buckle up because we're looking at JetBlue's big annual report for the year ending the 31st of December 2025. This is the kind of document that tells you where the airline stands, what it is planning, and frankly what keeps its executives up at night. Now usually these reports bury the really juicy stuff in the risk factors, and JetBlue certainly doesn't disappoint. They're upfront about operating in an extremely competitive industry. Think tough price wars, thin profit margins, and that constant battle to fill seats. They also highlight the long-term nature of their fleet order book. What this means is they've got planes on order for years to come, and if new, more efficient technology pops up, they might be slower to adopt it compared to rivals with more flexible plans. That could put them at a disadvantage. And then there is fuel. This big red flashing light for every airline pops up again. JetBlue spells it out clearly. Their business is super dependent on fuel, and fuel prices can swing wildly. They even give us a hint of how much they're spending, and that's always a key number to watch. The report also points out that as their planes get older, the cost to keep them flying safely will naturally go up. It is like owning a car eventually, the repairs just start piling up. And we can't forget weather, which is a massive disruptor for airlines, especially those concentrated on the East Coast like JetBlue. Think snowstorms in the winter and hurricanes in the summer and fall. This unpredictability can lead to cancelled flights, stranded passengers, and a big hit to their bottom line. Now, let's get to the numbers. We're looking at their balance sheet for the 31st of December, 2025 and 2024. First, let's check their cash. As of the 31st of December 2025, JetBlue had about $1.9 billion in cash and cash equivalents. That's pretty stable compared to 2024. This is important because having a healthy cash cushion is like having an emergency fuel tank for the airline, especially when things get tough. They also have investment securities, which are basically ways they park extra cash to earn a little more. In 2025, they had $213 million in short-term investments, down from a much larger $1.6 billion in 2024. That big drop suggests they might have used some of that investment money, perhaps to pay for planes or cover operating costs. Now, on the flip side, let's look at what they owe quickly, their current liabilities. This number went up to $4.4 billion in 2025 from $3.8 billion in 2024. A big chunk of that increase comes from current maturities of long-term debt and finance lease obligations. This means a larger portion of their loans and leases is coming due in the next year, which is something to keep an eye on. And what about the owner's stake, their equity? It decreased from $2.6 billion in 2024 to $2.1 billion in 2025. This drop is largely due to the net loss they reported for the year, which eats into the owner's share of the company. Moving on to how they actually performed financially, their statement of operations. Total operating revenues for 2025 were $9.06 billion, down from $9.27 billion in 2024. This 2.3% drop means they brought in less money from selling tickets and other services. They attribute this to softening demand, which is a polite way of saying fewer people were flying with them or paying as much. Passenger revenue, their main moneymaker, dropped by 3.3%. This is driven by fewer passengers and a slight decrease in how much they earned per passenger mile. Now, for some good news on the cost side, aircraft fuel expenses went down significantly from $2.3 billion in 2024 to $2.05 billion in 2025. That is a 12.2% decrease, largely thanks to lower fuel prices. This is a big win for JetBlue, as fuel is one of their biggest expenses. But hold on, while fuel costs went down, salaries, wages, and benefits went up by almost 6%. This increase is primarily due to wage hikes, including a big one for their pilots. This shows the rising labor costs that airlines are grappling with. Another area that saw a significant jump was maintenance, materials, and repairs, up by a whopping 26%. This increase is mainly due to engine repairs, which can be very costly and have a big impact on their operations. And then there are the special items. In 2025, these were relatively small at $30 million, mostly related to severance expenses. But in 2024, these special items were huge, a staggering $591 million. The report tells us this was mainly due to costs related to the failed Spirit Airlines merger. This shows how significant that failed deal was for their finances. Stripping out these one-time costs, their adjusted operating loss in 2024 was much smaller. Interest expense nearly doubled, jumping from $365 million in 2024 to $588 million in 2025. They explain this is primarily due to financing their TrueBlue loyalty program and issuing new debt. This higher interest burden is a direct consequence of borrowing more money. Putting it all together, JetBlue reported a net loss of $602 million for 2025. That is better than the $795 million loss in 2024, but still a significant loss. Even when they adjust for those spatial items and other one-off costs, their adjusted net loss in 2025 was $593 million. That means even without the big Spirit merger costs, they were still losing a lot of money. The Warren Buffett style analysis here is simple. Revenue is down, costs are up in key areas like labor and maintenance, and interest expenses are climbing. While fuel savings helped, they weren't enough to overcome these challenges, leading to another year of net losses. It is clear the airline is facing significant headwinds. Let's look at their ability to pay for things, their liquidity. As of the 31st of December 2025, JetBlue had $2.5 billion in liquidity, which includes cash, investments, and an available credit line. This sounds like a decent amount, but remember, airlines are incredibly capital intensive. They need cash for planes, fuel, salaries, and all sorts of operational expenses. When we look at their cash flow from investing activities, they actually had about 650 亿里 airline dollars coming in during 2025. This inflow seems a bit unusual when you consider they are buying planes, digging deeper. This inflow is largely due to selling investment securities and proceeds from selling aircraft, including those Embraer A380s they are retiring. This tells us they are actively managing their assets, possibly to free up cash. In contrast, in 2024, they used a massive $3.1 billion in investing activities. That's a huge outflow, likely driven by significant aircraft purchases and payments. And in financing activities, they used $417 million in 2025. This means they paid out more in debt repayments and other financing costs than they brought in from new financing. In 2024, however, they had a massive inflow of $3.7 billion from financing, largely due to those big TrueBlue loyalty program financings and issuing new debt, showing they were heavily relying on borrowing to manage their finances that year. Looking ahead, their contractual obligations are substantial. By 2026 alone, they have $2.4 billion in payments due for debt, leases, and purchase commitments. And over the next few years, these obligations climb into the tens of billions. This highlights the constant pressure to generate enough revenue and manage costs to meet these significant future payments. So what is the story here? JetBlue is in a tough spot. Their revenue is down. Costs are up in critical areas like labor and maintenance, and they're burdened by interest expenses from all the borrowing. The net loss is significant even after adjusting for one-time items. While they're managing their cash and have a decent liquidity position, much of that inflow in 2025 came from selling assets and investments, not from core operations. Their reliance on debt financing and the sheer scale of their future obligations are considerable risks. The good news is they are actively working on cost discipline and managed to reduce fuel expenses. Their new strategic framework, JetForward, and collaborations like the one with United Airlines, called Blue Sky, show an effort to adapt and find new revenue streams and efficiencies, opening their first airport lounge, Blue House, and enhancing their premium offerings like Mint are smart moves to capture higher margin revenue. However, the significant increase in maintenance costs and rising labor expenses are serious challenges that will likely persist. JetBlue's direction is a balancing act. They are trying to streamline operations, cut costs, and enhance their product, but they are up against industry-wide pressures like fuel volatility, labor costs, and intense competition. The large number of aircraft on order also represents future financial commitments that will need careful management. In conclusion, JetBlue is navigating a challenging environment with strategic initiatives, but the financial results for 2025 show they are still in recovery mode, facing significant cost pressures and a need to boost revenue. The path ahead requires flawless execution and careful management of their substantial financial obligations. What is your take on JetBlue's financial health and their strategy moving forward? What other companies should we decode next? Let me know in the comments below. If you found this breakdown valuable, please hit that like button, it really helps the channel. And subscribe for more deep dives into corporate filings. And don't forget to join our Discord community linked in the description for more discussions. Thanks for tuning in, and we'll see you on the next episode of Corporate Decoder.